I lost all respect for A'ja Wilson. I don't want to hear her opinions. I don't care what she has to say from this point on. When you keep a Nike deal 2 years in secret while you're spewing all that crazy stuff about Caitlin Clark in the Time magazine, read it. Read what she said in the Time magazine. Yet you had a Nike deal the whole entire time.
The Indiana Fever pulled off a long overdue victory against the Las Vegas Aces, their first since 2019. But while fans were celebrating the Fever's win, another storyline was brewing, and it had nothing to do with team strategy or locker room grit. Once again, all eyes turned toward A'ja Wilson, who seemed to be at the center of something a lot more questionable. And no, it's not about her raw talent. It's about the constant shadow hanging over every game she dominates the officiating. It's hard not to notice a pattern forming here, the kind of pattern that doesn't show up on stat sheets, but shows up in foul counts, free throw attempts, and the subtle momentum shifts that swing games. Wilson once again lit up the scoreboard with 29 points, but dig just a little deeper, and it becomes clear how she got there. She was sent to the free throw line 13 times.
Caitlin Clark's new Kobe PE shoe sold out in less than a minute, and I saw so many tweets about this, so many people who were so sad that they missed out on this shoe. I saw that there was this one Dick's store and people were lined up around the corner like camping out trying to get the shoe.
13. That's more than double what any of her teammates saw. In fact, no other player on her squad even got close. Now, look, we all understand the unwritten rules of superstar treatment. Every league has its icons, and sure, they tend to get a few calls in their favor. That's the nature of the game. But this isn't just a few whistles here and there. This is starting to look like a feature, not a bug, when a single player racks up free throws like clockwork night after night, while everyone else is left scrapping for even a glance from the officials. It starts raising eyebrows. People are starting to say it out loud now. There's something off about the way these games are being called. Some are calling it blatant favoritism. Others are going further, suggesting there may be motives behind the curtain that nobody wants to talk about publicly. But fans aren't blind. They watch the same replays. They see who gets hacked with no whistle and who barely gets touched, yet finds themselves at the charity stripe again and again.
Your stock price since 2021, it is down nearly 60%. Your executives and the people who are making these decisions, their stock options are worthless. Meanwhile, you have the single biggest needle mover in all of American sports since Michael Jordan, and you have somehow convinced yourself that you need to slow play this. Let me show you Google Trends search traffic for 4 female basketball players. There is one who only rivals Caitlin Clark, and that is Angel Reese, and you do not have her. She is over at Reebok. I am so confused as to how you would be so invested in the WNBA for several years, and you have been doing great work to try to elevate and uplift that league and many of the athletes there. But this seems like you have convinced yourself that this needs to be an either-or conversation. And we never have an either-or conversation in the men's sports. You have like 10 signature athletes. Half of them don't deserve a signature shoe.
Take Aaliyah Boston, for example. Another big name, another front runner. But what did she get during the same game? 2 free throw attempts, just 2. Both she and Wilson play a physical, paint-dominant style of basketball. They go toe-to-toe in the same gritty environments, battling down low for every bucket. Yet somehow, the whistle seems to know only one name, and it keeps ringing for her, over and over. It's not just fans noticing this either. Commentators, bloggers, podcasters, they're all catching on. Memes have already started spreading like wildfire. Wilson's logo, now mocked up with whistles instead of design flourishes. It's funny on the surface, but it carries a real sting underneath.
Caitlin, and was thought to be a colorway made just for her, up until just a couple days ago, where Nike's official images of the shoes got leaked and the announcement was made saying that everyone will now have a chance to wear them.
This isn't just about one game or one performance. It's about the legitimacy of the entire league. When referees hand out foul shots like favors, it's more than just a gameplay issue. It turns competitive basketball into a show, and not the good kind, the kind that makes people question everything from integrity to intention. It's not supposed to be this way. These are elite athletes. They've earned their place through work, skill, and dedication. But once officiating starts to tilt the scale, none of that matters anymore. Games stop being about execution and start being about expectation, and that's where trust erodes.
Well, I don't think I'd be in the wrong to say Caitlin Clark's Kobe is the sneaker of the week, and everyone's focus is mostly on this one. If you really wanted that shoe, I hope you put your footwork in, because there's supposedly only 13,000 pairs on Sneakers App tomorrow. Combine that with a really high resale value, I expect this shoe to be a relatively difficult comp. But my hope seriously is that with Caitlin Clark's sneaker coming out, that this sets a precedent and we might see other exclusive player edition Kobe's drop for the public.
Some are even asking tough questions. Are the refs just bad at their jobs? Or is something deeper going on? Is this a matter of poor training? Or is there incentive involved? That's the word floating around now, incentive. In a world where betting lines exist for everything from score spreads to individual player totals, there's no shortage of speculation. If someone wanted to manipulate the numbers for a quick payout, what better way than through foul calls? Send a player to the line enough times, and you can blow past their projected points. Easy money, no missed layups, no contested jumpers, just a few soft whistles, and you're right where you need to be. It's the kind of scenario that sounds like a conspiracy theory until you watch the game tape and start seeing the pattern unfold with your own eyes.
So it's finally here. Caitlin Clark sneakers from Nike is finally dropping. She was signed to them last year, and the sneakers is a year late in my opinion, but nonetheless I'm excited because these sneakers is finally coming out. But what does annoy me a little bit is that this is a collaboration with Kobe. Now, Kobe, respect to Kobe, the legend, rest in peace, great basketball player.
What's even more frustrating is the silence from leadership. The league's commissioner has yet to step in or make any meaningful moves to address the growing backlash. Instead, we get vague statements and the same old excuses about letting the officials do their job. But at this point, doing nothing isn't neutrality, it's negligence. The integrity of the sport is being questioned in real time, and those at the top are acting like everything's fine. Meanwhile, fans are growing more cynical by the day. They're not just disappointed, they're fed up. They want to see competitive, honest basketball, not a showcase stacked with scripted outcomes. When the same player keeps getting bailed out with every drive to the rim, and the rest of the league has to fight tooth and nail for calls.
These things is some fire. I'm telling you, where there's smoke, there is fire, and these things is hitting so hard. And who got a bot? Who a shoe plug? Because I need 2 pairs. I need one for the sneaker wall, and I need one for my feet, because these things is hidden right here, and no, I don't want to pay $600 on Go.
It creates a division, a visible, painful rift that turns excitement into resentment. And let's not pretend this doesn't affect teammates either. Imagine being on the floor, putting in the same effort, grinding through every possession only to watch someone else get a completely different treatment. It sends a message, intentional or not. Some players matter more than others. Some get grace, others get ignored. That's not how a team functions. That's not how a league grows. Even those rooting for the Aces have started speaking up. Supporters are realizing that dominance on the court doesn't mean much when it's paired with inconsistency from the officials. There's no pride in winning games that feel predetermined. The joy of victory fades when it's wrapped in controversy.
Nike finally delivers Caitlin Clark PE. Is this the first Caitlin Clark exclusive Nike commercial since she's entered the WNBA? I know she's made a cameo here, she's made a cameo there, she was featured as part of this rollout here, featured as part of this rollout there, but is this our first official Caitlin Clark solo commercial?
This is the sort of thing that can damage an entire season, if not more. Once fans start believing the fix is in, they tune out. They stop buying tickets. They stop watching broadcasts. They stop caring. Because if the outcome is already decided, what's the point? What's the point of investing time, emotion, and money into something that doesn't feel real anymore? And yet, here we are. Another night. Another box score inflated by free throws. Another conversation that has nothing to do with strategy, execution, or athleticism, and everything to do with who's holding the whistle. The deeper this issue runs, the more the foundation of the league starts to crack. It's not just about one player, it's about what that player represents in the broader context of fairness. Aja Wilson may not be asking for the whistles, but the way they fall in her favor is becoming symbolic of a much bigger problem, one that's eating away at the credibility of the sport itself.
All eyes will be on tonight's match. We are in for a show.
Bouncing, connect, shot it. Lays it in on a delectable dime for Caitlin Clark.
Every time she steps onto the court, there's an expectation that she'll get calls others won't. And the worst part? It's almost never questioned from inside the system. No game reviews, no accountability reports, no honest discussions from officials or leadership about what fans are clearly seeing. Just silence, maybe even a shrug, like it's all just part of the entertainment. But people aren't laughing. This isn't some exaggerated hot take from a corner of the internet. It's the dominant conversation surrounding the league right now. It's what fans are talking about after the final buzzer. And that's the true damage. It overshadows everything else. Instead of celebrating young talent like Aaliyah Boston, who plays with intensity and skill, the focus stays stuck on lopsided officiating. Instead of dissecting game plans or applauding team effort, the narrative is hijacked by foul totals and disproportionate treatment. And that can't continue if the league wants to move forward, even when Wilson has a solid night.
I just felt like across the board, this commercial was a 10 for 10. And a lot of people have been getting on Nike because they don't feel like they have been promoting Caitlyn as much as they should. But I will say we have to give credit where credit is due. I feel like in the past month or so, they have been tweeting about Caitlyn more. And then obviously with the shoe release, they made this super sick commercial to promote it. And of course, just today, Caitlin Clark's new Kobe PE shoe sold out in less than a minute. And I saw so many tweets about this, so many people who were so sad that they missed out on this shoe. I saw that there was this one Dick's store and people were lined up around the corner, like camping out, trying to get the shoe.
And let's be honest, she's capable of putting up big numbers on her own. The whistles cast a shadow over the performance. People stop asking, how did she dominate? And start asking, how many free throws did she get? That shift in focus changes everything. It strips the achievement of its value. It plants doubt. And once doubt takes root, it spreads fast. It also creates a new kind of pressure, a toxic kind. Players begin questioning each other. Teams start second-guessing what's happening around them. It's no longer about preparing for your opponent. It's about preparing for the officials. That's not basketball. That's something else entirely. Imagine being a young player coming into the league right now. You fight your way through college, get drafted, and land your first minutes on the hardwood. You're ready to prove yourself, but then you realize it doesn't matter how hard you play. If your name doesn't carry weight, you're not getting those calls. You're not going to the line. You're invisible to the whistle. What kind of message does that send?
Nike released the shoe this morning for $190. That was the going rate for the signature sneaker. Now, I'm here to tell you, as you guys can see right here on Google, just type in Caitlin Clark Kobe 5. StockX, currently right now, they're going for $345. On GOAT, they're going for $386. In Flight Club, you're looking at $375. Must mind you, these sneakers was just released a few hours ago. These sneakers were retail for $190. This is the Caitlin Clark defect.
It tells rookies and rising stars that merit alone isn't enough, that politics matter more than performance, and that can quickly crush motivation and morale. No matter how many hours you put in, if you're not one of the chosen, the game won't treat you the same. There's also a cultural toll to this. The WNBA is still growing, still fighting for viewership, still working to solidify its place in the landscape of professional sports. But controversies like this make that battle harder. The league already faces skepticism from certain corners, and officiating issues like these don't help. In fact, they confirm exactly what the skeptics love to shout, that the product isn't ready, that it's not polished, that it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. And when those critics point to the free throw disparities, when they show how one player can take 13 while another takes 2, when they highlight how refs seem to vanish in certain matchups and come alive in others, it's hard to argue against it. The numbers don't lie. The game film is there. The trend is obvious. So what's the solution? For starters, accountability. Real accountability. Not just quiet internal reviews or vague statements that offer no clarity. The league needs transparency. When refs make mistakes, or when patterns suggest something bigger is going on, there should be consequences. There should be corrections. There should be a standard that applies to every team and every player, no matter how big their name is. Next, leadership must speak up. If the commissioner stays silent, the noise only grows louder. Fans start writing their own narratives. They begin connecting dots, sometimes accurately, sometimes not, but either way, it becomes the story. And if leadership refuses to confront the issue, it appears complicit, and that's a disaster for trust. Then there's the betting angle. Whether or not it's actually happening, the perception of influence is enough to spark doubt. If fans believe that foul calls are tied to betting odds, then every free throw becomes suspicious. Every call feels rigged. rigged. Every game feels like a setup. That's not a small issue. That's a crisis of confidence that can spiral out of control, especially when betting platforms allow users to place money on player props. If a whistle puts Wilson over her point total night after night, and the same officials are working those games, people will talk, people will investigate, and even the hint of wrongdoing is enough to damage a league still trying to build its reputation. That's why it's not just about Wilson. It's about the bigger picture. It's about preserving the sport's dignity, because if the players stop trusting the calls and the fans stop believing in the product, then all the progress the WNBA has made starts to crumble. There's a reason other leagues have systems in place for referee review. There's a reason fans demand transparency from officials in the NFL, the NBA, even Major League Baseball, because everyone knows how much power lies in those whistles. They decide momentum, they shape games, they determine winners. So why should the WNBA be any different? Right now, it feels like there's a refusal to acknowledge the elephant in the room. The officiating is uneven, the treatment of players is inconsistent, and certain stars are getting benefits that others don't. Whether that's intentional or not, it's creating a divide that threatens the league's future. And let's be clear, this isn't about jealousy, it's not about tearing someone down, it's about fairness, about equity, about holding everyone to the same standard. Because if one player is getting hand-delivered opportunities while another is getting elbowed under the basket with no call, then something is broken. Basketball is supposed to be about skill, strategy, and grit, not who has the loudest name or the most marketing deals, not who gets the benefit of the doubt from the officials, not who draws the biggest crowd or the highest view count. And that's why this moment matters. This is a chance for the league to step up, to prove it takes these concerns seriously, to show fans, players, and critics alike that it's committed to integrity, because the longer this drags on, the more damage it does to morale, to legitimacy, to the entire sport. If the WNBA wants to be taken seriously, it needs to start acting like it. That means facing hard truths. That means admitting when things are off. That means rebuilding trust, call by call, whistle by whistle. Because at the end of the day, no player should have their legacy defined by suspicion. No team should feel they're playing 5 on 8, and no fan should walk away from a game wondering if the scoreboard reflects reality or something else entirely. As the discussion around Aja Wilson's free throw advantage continues to dominate conversations, it's starting to take on a life of its own. What used to be quiet complaints during post-game breakdowns is now center stage. Fans aren't just whispering their frustration anymore. They're making graphics, videos, and even memes to highlight what they see as a glaring problem that refuses to go away. One of the most popular images floating around is a mock version of Wilson's logo, except the traditional design has been swapped out for whistles. It's exaggerated, sure, but behind the humor lies genuine frustration. It's a visual representation of everything fans have been trying to express for months. They feel like the game has turned into a script, one where the outcome is determined not by hustle or tactics, but by who the officials favor that night. You can feel the shift. It's no longer just about a lopsided stat line. It's about trust being chipped away, night after night. When viewers can predict who will get the benefit of the doubt before tip-off, it's a problem. When players start to hold back out of fear, they won't get the same whistle their opponent does. It's a problem. When teams start to prepare for referees instead of opponents, the sport itself is at risk. This isn't isolated to 1 or 2 games. This is a pattern, and patterns demand attention. Imagine being a coach trying to keep your players motivated while dealing with that kind of imbalance. How do you coach a fair game when the rules aren't being applied fairly? What do you say in the locker room when your star center gets mugged in the post and the whistle stays silent? But on the other end, a brush of contact sends Wilson to the line again. It's demoralizing. And more than that, it creates an emotional divide between teams. There's no level playing field when one side plays by different standards. And once that kind of favoritism is perceived, whether real or not, it becomes impossible to ignore. Players notice, coaches notice, and more than anyone, the fans notice. They're the ones spending their time and money to support the league. They're the ones defending it on social media, encouraging growth, and spreading awareness. But even the most loyal fan has a limit. And when the same issues keep popping up, they start asking themselves whether it's worth investing in a product that doesn't respect the basics of competition. And let's talk about optics. From a public relations standpoint, this is a nightmare. Every time Wilson gets another parade of foul shots while her opponents are left shaking their heads, it feeds the narrative that the league is uneven, even rigged. That's a dangerous message to send, especially for a league still carving out its identity. The WNBA has come a long way in recent years. It's expanded its reach, boosted viewership, and drawn more attention than ever before. But moments like this put all of that progress at risk, because once a sport loses its credibility, it's incredibly difficult to get it back. The damage isn't just short-term. These kinds of controversies stick. They linger. They come up in conversations years later. They become part of a player's legacy, part of a league's reputation, part of the history that can't be rewritten. That's why this can't be brushed aside. It's not just a bad officiating night. It's not just a few calls missed. It's a consistent issue that has now become symbolic of a larger problem, one that cuts deep into the heart of the game. And the longer it's ignored, the worse it gets. Because at the end of the day, people don't want to watch a league where outcomes feel predetermined. They don't want to cheer for players who benefit from favoritism. They want competition. Real, gritty, honest competition where the best team wins because they earned it, not because the refs tilted the scale. And it's not like this can't be fixed. Other leagues have gone through growing pains too. The NBA has had its officiating scandals. The NFL has faced criticism for game-changing calls. But the difference is, they eventually took action. They implemented replay systems, accountability measures, and post-game officiating reports to bring transparency back into the equation. The WNBA could do the same. It could choose to be proactive instead of reactive. It could address the elephant in the room instead of hoping it fades away. It could recognize that its audience is smart, passionate, and deeply invested, and that those same people won't sit. How many more games like this will it take? How many more nights where Wilson shoots a dozen free throws while her counterparts get 2? How many more fans need to turn off their TVs or walk out of arenas before someone at the top realizes this isn't going away? This could be a turning point, a moment where the league shows it's willing to grow, to adapt, to protect the very thing that keeps sports alive: integrity. Or it could be another missed opportunity, another chapter in a growing story about favoritism, inconsistency, and declining trust. A'ja Wilson is a gifted player. No one is denying that. But the conversation around her isn't just about her talent anymore. It's about what her presence on the court represents, whether she's being elevated by the system or whether the system is being broken in the process. And that's not fair to her either, because now every big performance is met with skepticism. Every high-scoring night is dissected. Every trip to the free throw line is questioned. The legitimacy of her game is being buried under a cloud of controversy she may not have asked for, but one that's impossible to separate from her name at this point. If the league doesn't step in, this cloud will grow. It'll spread beyond Wilson. It'll stain other players, other teams, other moments. It'll become the backdrop to every big matchup. It'll haunt playoff runs and championship games. And eventually, it'll become the thing people remember more than the basketball itself. That's the cost of silence. That's the risk of doing nothing. This isn't just about one player. It's about the soul of the sport. And if the league cares about its future, it needs to listen. It needs to watch the same film the fans are watching. It needs to look at the same stats. And it needs to ask the same hard questions everyone else is asking. Because until that happens, the whistle won't just be a sound. It'll be a symbol of everything that's wrong and everything that needs to change. Let me know if you'd like a proofread master copy, a thumbnail title inspired by the script, or to start the next rewrite.